Welcome to the Dave Chang Show. We are here in Studio 2 at the Row. This is our attempt to make a Chicago-style hot dog. We're starting to cook again at the beginning of every podcast. We're slowly testing things out as we move from the Spotify studios here to our studio here at the Row, where we also film Dinner Time Live, amongst other things. And today, I have to remind myself that we're doing a podcast that's video and audio. So the audio portion, where you can also watch, I'm going to interview the great restaurateur, partner in one-off hospitality, Donnie Madia. You might see him on The Bear. That's probably where he's getting noticed the most. He helped consult and advise. But he is also one of the great sort of hospitality figures in our profession. And I will go on with a lot of sort of my what may seem hyperbolic in terms of my opinions about it, but I think him and what Paul Kahan and his other partners are doing up in Chicago are truly best in class. But we've talked about Chicago a bunch on this podcast, and we're going to try to start off every podcast with a cooking segment, which again, I have to remind myself that we have to describe what we're doing as well. This episode of the Dave Chang Show is presented by Prime. You've got 5 hungry friends in your living room. The drinks will only hold them for so long. I know the feeling. I also know that sometimes, back in the kitchen, it's absolute chaos. Meat overcooked, potatoes under, too much salt in the sauce, too little sauce for the noodles. Luckily, you get free Grubhub Plus with Prime. So with a few taps, dinner saved, and so's your reputation. Free Grubhub Plus. It's on Prime. Additional terms and fees apply. If you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you know that during the pandemic, I think we're doing askdave after dark, and we just got to make fun of Seattle. I love Seattle. My family, my in-laws are from Seattle. My wife was born and raised in Chicago and raised in Seattle, so I feel like I have the right to make fun of Seattle and their hot dogs. So we made fun of a lot of the Seattle hot dogs. I'm sure they're delicious. That's not what I'm trying to say. I just said that it doesn't make any sense as to why Seattle would have a hot dog that belongs more in Philadelphia, because it's bacon wrapped. It has like cream cheese, amongst other things. But I, without doing any homework, it would seem to me that the true origin of a city claiming a style of hot dog, maybe I'm wrong, probably, but it seems to be maybe not necessarily New York and the Dirty Water hot dog, which are fucking delicious, but in Chicago hot dog, which I didn't understand. I still don't understand a lot of things. The only thing I know for certain is that a Chicago hot dog doesn't have ketchup. People in Chicago get really upset when you put ketchup on a hot dog. I don't know where that began. We have 2 people in front of me that are from the Chicago area or Chicago adjacent area. In Chicago, maybe producer David can enlighten us. He's from Chicago. But from what I know, and I did have a Hot Dukes hot dog when Hot Dukes was open, and that was sort of this legendary hot dog shop that took making Chicago-style hot dogs to the nth degree. And it's a hot dog on a specific bun. It's got to be these buns.
Got to be poppy seed.
Got to be poppy seed.
No doubt. And it's dragged through the garden.
It's what?
It's called dragged through the garden is the rest of the toppings.
What, dragged through the garden?
Yeah, that's why you got all that produce in front of you.
Okay, I don't know if I'll use that terminology, drag the garden. But here's the deal. Besides a Chicago hot dog not having ketchup, it has a bunch of things that are definitely peculiar and original. Celery seed. It's got slices of tomato. It's got diced onions. It has mustard. It has a hot pepper. It's somewhat similar to the LA dog. I think the Chicago dog clearly came first. And I think, and this nuclear green relish, which is right here, and that is just scary as hell. Anyway, since we have one of the great sons of Chicago and Donnie, and I know very little about a Chicago hot dog, I've only had a couple, I thought I'd make you one, and you guys can watch me make a Chicago dog for the first time. The other thing I learned just now, having never done this, is that they're boiled. I don't know if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do both. That's not my favorite way of eating a hot dog. Is there anything else I'm missing, David?
No, I mean, you mentioned no ketchup, but I found an urban legend online as to why that is, which is that
Why?
the meat back in the day was oftentimes not good meat. So people would cover up the taste of bad meat with ketchup. So in not using it, it was the Chicago meat purveyors saying that, hey, we're using good meat. We don't need to cover the taste. You don't have to worry about this meat. That was what I heard.
Sometimes I wonder who drinks this. Chicago juice. Just call it Chicago juice.
Chicago juice is crazy.
Well, that's a legitimate reason, right? Well, some things can change. I mean, that's why sauce was invented, to cover up things. So right now, I've had 2 packages of hot dogs, and one, I was not planning on boiling or steaming or simmering these hot dogs, but that is how Chicago dogs are actually cooked. I thought I was really just gonna roll them in butter, and that's my preferred way of cooking a hot dog. So I'm gonna just put some hash marks right now in a couple dogs so you can see how it's gonna cook. And then one, I'll just do a bunch of, I'm cutting a bunch of like 3mm or various thin slices of cuts into the hot dog. And I will go the other way.
And what is the scoring? What is all of that doing for the
Just
dog?
to make it look fancy. I'm trying to make a hot dog that looks something that's like an accordion of some degree. But also, one of the reasons why it does scoring a hot dog or some kind of encased meat farce thing. Farce is the French term for mixture, like a meat mixture. Is that because it's an encasing that is holding all the liquid in, and as you cook, it expands, right? The atoms expand, they want to burst out. You can have a sausage or encased meat that will explode or burst open. So oftentimes, you want to release that pressure by opening it up a little bit. And it's okay with something like this because it's already cooked. A hot dog, I've never seen a non-cooked hot dog. I'm sure they exist, but I've never bought one. But if this was a fresh sausage, sometimes you prick it. For those that are listening, I'm cutting tomato wedges because supposedly that's what you put in. I remember a Chicago dog being somewhat different in that there were thinner slices of tomato, like so. So I'll slice some tomato things a little bit thinner because we have a lot of hot dogs. And there's a lot of people in the studio right now as we're gearing up for Dinner Time Live to eat a lot of this stuff. One of the things I feel that you see in hot dog carts all over the place is diced onions. I'm slowly rolling, when I say rolling, cooking these other package of hot dogs in a cast iron pan. And this is one of those things, well, as I'm trying to figure out a new setup back here, this is a big tip to have in your kitchen, whether it's home or not, is a pastry, one of these fuckers.
A bench scraper.
Bench scraper, excuse me. I'm holding in my hand a green bench scraper that looks like a piece of plastic. Besides a cake tester, this is truly one of the most important tools in a kitchen because it saves you time. You might save literally half a second or 2 seconds, but in a professional kitchen, when you're really busy, 90% of your day is cleaning and mise en place and prepping out stuff. If you do like 100 onions, that's 100 seconds. That's how things add up. Anyway, so I have that set up. I believe the Chicago dog also has a wedge of a dill cucumber, correct?
Correct.
So I'm slicing some dill pickles. I'm not going to do a whole wedge. This relish is just, I can't.
Neon green.
It is
sweet
really
relish.
something else. The one thing I do like about They get, what kind of peppers are these?
Sport peppers.
They're great. And they're served whole too, correct?
Yeah.
My only comp to this is the Chicago, to the Chicago dog, is the LA dog that I talk about quite a bit, is they'll char a whole jalapeno and put that in. So I think the LA dog is delicious. I have on low heat these hot dogs that are in a pan. This is not the authentic way, but this is how I cook my hot dogs at home. I mentioned this podcast that you're going to listen to that I stopped really eating hot dogs as a kid because I watched, I believe, a John Candy movie with Dan Aykroyd in it called The Great Outdoors, and one of the older brothers tells the younger brother that you like hot dogs, that means you eat lips and assholes. And that scared me straight, and I just stopped eating hot dogs. I would say it literally took me spending a lot of time in Denmark and Sweden over the past 20 plus years to start to eat hot dogs again. And I even have made sort of like versions of hot dogs in kitchens. And I still I think that has changed because the whole part of making a pate or sausage is to use a lot of secondary or offal cuts, which is why I'm now more inclined to eat it. But the reason I'm mostly involved with eating hot dogs is my children like to eat it. But the weird thing is my kids don't like the bread. They're like hot dog only. And I feel like I see that more and more with kids. They just leave the bun separate. They're on the early no carb train. So I won't say a healthy dose of butter, maybe a tablespoon of butter. And I had it cooking on low heat. So I want the center of the hot dog to be cooked through. And now I raise the heat so it's medium high. And now I want those milk solids, these milk solids to get golden brown and start to caramelize and get the Maillard reaction in the hot dog itself. I feel like a hot dog gets more beautiful than any other encased meat. I'm literally just rolling this ever so gently so it doesn't get burned. But getting some burned bits on your hot dog are good. And I would imagine someone listening to this would be like, you're just cooking a hot dog. I know, I get it. But every time I'm at someone's house at a play date and they're eating hot dogs and I'm cooking, I'm always doing this. And the parent, inevitably, like Nick Kroll, good buddy, one of my good friends, he now only cooks his hot dogs for his family in butter when he saw me do it this way before. I think this is the superior way. And this is the point where you really have to roll. You don't need to do a stainless steel, you can cook in a stainless steel pan. I would not do a Teflon pan or nonstick pan. And this is another thing you might see in restaurants all the time, but you never ever see at home, is everything that you cook always gets dotted to take away the fat. So, you're roasting meat or you're cooking chicken or even vegetables, you're going to put it on a C-fold or a paper towel, drain off the fat, and then plate. I'm gonna remove these dogs. And I'm gonna do a compare and contrast about which one you would rather eat. Look at this difference. I have in this pan, if you're listening, 2 packages of hot dogs, one in sort of simmering water, and the other just rolled in some butter. You don't need to use butter, you could use any kind of oil as well. And listen, the reason why scientifically it is more delicious is because of the Maillard reaction. With caramelized sugars, developing more glutamic acid. I just took a bite of a boiled hot dog. Also super delicious, but different. I don't understand why these are just plain. I mean, these gotta be toasted, right? What's in this relish?
Onion relish.
What's in this? So there's a Mrs. Klein's Chicago-style green relish, and it literally looks like the water that gets turned into green water during St. Patrick's Day. What's in it?
Let's see what neon green relish is different with. They add dye to regular relish is what it says.
That's it.
It's literally just like they do.
So they put 1 slice of tomato?
Probably 2, yeah, like that, exactly. 2 wedges. You put 1 pickle spear across.
All right, so I've now put the dog in there in the bun. I've put some diced onions, and I put some of the nuclear green relish. That's relish with just dye. Put that aside. Sport pepper, 1. Gotta do 2.
There are 2 in there, yeah. They're bite-sized.
Now the next thing I'm missing is celery seed.
Celery salt.
Celery salt. This is to me the crucial what the fuck.
Dave has put some mustard on and now it's just the pickle spear.
To me, this is the hot dog. And it would be toasted, a little butter, and then what you're not supposed to do, and cue this Obama clip.
You should not eat ketchup after the age of 8.
Like, I don't like anything else if I'm going to do this. In fact, I prefer to do a raw dog, hot dog with just nothing, oftentimes. But to me, not growing up in a hot dog culture, like, this is how I grew up eating it. All right, let's get in here.
All right.
We're eating.
This is the.
I just had a bite of a normal hot dog with ketchup, and this is now a Chicago dog that we're going to consume. Great for listening, huh?
It's a good dog. Bring back some memories at Wrigley Field, watching the Cubs.
It's delicious. There's nothing not to like about it. That'll probably be my first and last time actually making a Chicago dog. But for the record, they're delicious. So, I don't know really how or why, but I love that Chicago has its own dog. I wish more places had its own type of thing. And now you know. But it makes sense that the sauce of ketchup was, because for the longest time, American history, Chicago was the land of making meat. All right. Thank you, guys. Stay tuned. We're going to talk to Donnie Madia, Godfather himself.
Chicago hero.
If you're wondering, today's somewhat a Chicago-themed episode. We have one of the great culinary sons of Chicago, Donnie Madia of One Off Hospitality. And he's one of the most influential figures in Chicago. He's the co-founder of One Off Hospitality, and that's the group behind restaurants such as Blackbird, Avec, The Publican, Big Star, The Violet Hour, Publican Quality Meats. Man, I've known Donnie now, and Donnie and Paul Kahan, the chef, damn, 20, 25, nearing a quarter century. And I have so much respect for them. Paul is one of the most beloved chefs in the industry, a real chef, and he doesn't pursue any bullshit, man. He's just one of the best. I was very lucky to win, I think it was 2015, Outstanding Chef in America, the James Beard Awards. It was the first time I think that 2 chefs ever won in the same year, and I couldn't have been more honored to share that with Paul. He's just one of the best. And as his counterpart, I think Donnie represents the front of the house and the hospitality that makes One Off one of the really great restaurant groups out there. And in this podcast, you're going to hear me say this hyperbolic thing that they might be one of the great, if not the greatest, in my knowledge, culinary sort of partnerships that have still remained true and together. And I think they support each other in the ups and downs, as do their other partners. And it's not easy. Any kind of relationship is fucking hard, whether it's friendship, marriage, or whatever. But one of the hardest relationships I could ever imagine, having been in them, is anything in the hospitality industry. And sometimes it just doesn't work. I can't explain it, but I have had so much admiration, not just for the kinds of quality they do in their restaurants and the service and the beverage programs, but also the sort of the innovation in terms of the kinds of restaurants they open up. But I have the most amount of respect because they've kept their partnership together, and that's so hard to do. A chef or front of the house person, they usually have not opened a restaurant before. They usually start a restaurant because they've worked together and they form a partnership. And that partnership needs to, go through a crucible that you're going to just see all kinds of shit. And if you're thinking about opening up a business, you're thinking about starting a business with a partner, which you sort of have to do, I recommend you learn and study all the culinary partnerships throughout the past 30 years, 40 years in American history. And I would start off for sure by studying what One Off Hospitality has done for almost 30 years now. I think there's a lot to learn and how they've done it right. After this, we're going to do a quick Ask Dave, and then we're going to, hopefully you're going to see some kind of MacGyvering where I might make a tavern crust pizza with matzo bread. And we're going to talk, you've heard me talk about a hot dog to start, but Donnie, born and raised in Chicago. He's won numerous foundation awards from the James Beard House, including Outstanding Restaurateur in 2025. Spent a year at Mr. Beef, which was the sort of the inspiration for the Bear. He has been on the Bear. He has been helping to be an advisor on the Bear. He's opened up Big Star, the Violet Hour, which is one of the best cocktail lounges in anywhere. I've gotten extremely drunk there before and had many, many meals at all of his establishments. I think Donnie's just one of the very best, and I'm effusive in my praise because I don't think they get praised enough. We're joined with Donnie. To pronounce your last name, we're just saying this. It's Madia.
It is Madia, yes.
But he was talking about a welcome conference speech in 2016, and Donnie was there, and he's been in this business a long time, and I think one of the positives of 2025 is we're able to talk about things that we may not have been able to so easily talk about 20 years ago, or at least when we started this profession. That's for sure.
Yeah, because what's so interesting about your talk was how you work your way from a child to in your teens, and how you made fun out of that public service announcement, and then you woke up one day and you were cooking in the East Village, and I remember going there. I remember the day I went there the first time, and what's such a dichotomy is I stopped by to see Joe Bastianich at their new restaurant on 10th, and he was walking me through every square foot of it and what this cost and what that cost, and Del Posto, and I was like, man, I can't even rub two nickels together to put a restaurant together this size. And then he goes, well, where are you going to eat at? I said, well, on the way to the airport, I'm going to stop at Momofuku. I really want to go there. And he goes, oh man, you got to go. I'll drop you off. And we had more conversation about restaurant business, and then I got there, and here we are in this little space, and you're cooking your ass off, and there was such a dichotomy between size and also what we spend on a restaurant back then and what he spent on a restaurant. It was like, man, New York is big, and New York is something, and New York is just so powerful, right? I'm just trying to get an edge, man. That's all I was trying to do, is get an edge and educate myself a little bit and hang out in New York and really, figure it out. And then I walked in your store, and you're just there. You are cooking your ass off, and it was so fast paced, and food was so good and so delicious, and it was new to me, and I was like, man, this is really good. So I just wanted to say I complimented you, man. I think I've been holding that in for about 20 years, and just your career and Chris alongside you, you guys are so spot on and powerful, and I just love watching your shows. And I took some notes, and I got to run through this David Chang show, dinner time live, recipe club, clean plate club, and you guys are on fire.
Well, it doesn't feel like that, though. You know what I mean? It never feels like that. And, I'm not going to go over your CV now. I'm going to do it before. So you don't have to hear all of your accolades and accomplishments. But the funny thing is you're mentioning a period in 2004. And when did you open up Blackbird?
1997.
So I was there in 2003. And I went with Damon Wise. I think we're kind of check out the Chicago scene. And the funny thing is, you're saying New York's got all this vibrancy and buzz, which it does. But I'm not saying this with any kind of hyperbole or trying to blow smoke up your ass. But I think, Chicago is a tortoise, and the tortoise wins the race.
Yeah.
And grass is always greener on the other side. But you just doing what you guys do, I think in Chicago, I don't think anybody underestimates what you guys do. You guys are a part of the fabric of dining in Chicago, but on a national level, I feel like some people now through the Bear or just in general, or people in the industry have always known, but just as a whole, you guys have built something since 1997 that has become, I think, arguably, and this is a statement, the best culinary partnership ever. When I say culinary partnership, front of the house, back of the house, it has almost never worked out.
Yeah.
You guys are a testament to resolving sort of your visions and creating a team. And I felt that when I was eating at Blackbird, and just the vibe and the intention of the food and the elevation of the service, but it felt not in a bullshit kind of way, Midwestern charm as well. You know what I mean? It wasn't hokey. It just was cool. And that didn't exist.
It did exist, but it probably existed in a different light. And then what Paul, myself, Edward, and Ricky tried to do was welcome people in this white gypsum board box, and make them the color, make them the star, make the food the star, but really make the people the star because they were the color of the dining room. Our collaboration, Paul, is, I think I watched the episode when you and Chris talked about the Bear season 2, and you called out Chicago and you called Paul out, and you guys both won an important James Beard Award together. And I think that's the only time in history that two incredible chefs shared that same award. So that says a lot about who you are as a personality, who Paul is, and your sensibilities, both of you.
But there's just so much to unpack, and I'm so happy that you're here, because I want everyone to know that you guys are really genuinely best in class. Chicago is, I would say, the most important food city in America right now, because it's the only city that truly embraces something that's at the vanguard of the cutting edge. No other city, including New York, does, but Chicago. Yeah. So for that reason alone, it's so important. And, everything you guys have done, let me just back it up. In this profession, everyone talks shit about everybody. I have my fair share of detractors. I am fully aware you could line up 100 city blocks with people that hate my guts. There's only one other person I know that's that's Corey Lee in San Francisco. And as a group, nobody I know of as a chef has ever talked poorly about Paul. And anybody in the front of the house, or past employees, has ever talked poorly about you. And that is to me the greatest compliment that you could receive. Is it is genuine. People adore you, they respect you, and they admire the organization you've built. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass.
Well, thank you for that compliment, man. I think the first 10 or 15 minutes is going to go back and forth. I'm like I said, man. I come from humble beginnings, just like you do. And man, my mom, if she was here, and if I ever like tried to get out of my skin into something that I was not, man, she just give me a crack. So I remember those. I remember who my mom is. I remember where I grew up, and I took my son. I drove by my old neighborhood, and I showed him where I grew up. We got out, stood up. he sat on the steps and nobody came out, and I took him for a hot dog, which was my neighborhood haunt. And that's the only way that that's how I'm coming in. That's how I'm going out. And I'm just going to be humble and real all the time and not be full of anything.
But you talk about growing up in Chicago.
Yeah.
What did you think you were going to do when you were a kid?
Just before I started bartending, I thought for a minute that I could be a successful commodities trader at the Board of Trade. And that didn't work out at all for me. My fallback was tending bar and waiting tables. And that's how I supplemented my income, and that's how I got through my weekly I worked at like 3 or 4 different restaurants. I also worked in a nightclub, and I got paid cash, and that's how I made my living. So I can fuel this other dream that I had that didn't materialize. But I fell in love with restaurants, working for Joey DeBono from Tufano's, 4 generations of Italian American cuisine. Mr. Beef, Joey Sicaro gave me a job when I needed a job, and I worked there for a year on my way up, and I just filled in the gap with other bartending gigs, and I just fell in love with it. It was really enticing to me to work behind the bar and interact with people and make people drinks, not the drinks that we have today, but also to serve great food. And that was my fallback. And then I just started to materialize what it could be like if I opened my own restaurant. And 10 years later, after bartending for 10 years, I had an opportunity to meet Ricky, or work with Ricky and Paul, and put a plan together. So very lucky. The stars aligned for us, and the rest is history. Yeah.
And I feel like you were always you've opened up restaurants in parts of Chicago that were historically sort of not cool, and then, every time you go back to Chicago, you're like, whoa, everything around
there's
your
5
restaurant.
more restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's 5 more restaurants right around the corner from Blackburn and Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was, I believe that was by happenstance, because everything on the other side of the expressway was Jerry Kleiner land, and we couldn't afford those rents. So we took a shot, and everybody thought we were crazy. And I'm sure you heard this story before, but we were on a one-way street, and people would look at us and like, "Are you guys crazy?" And we're like, "I don't know. We can afford this rent, though. That's for sure." And we hooked up with Thomas, and he created a killer design, and it was like a fishbowl. And then one day we were just looking out the window before we opened, and the cars were backed up from the light at Des Plaines, and they were backed up 2 blocks trying to get to the expressway, and everybody had a voyeuristic look inside this dining room, and they're like, "What the fuck is that?"
Because can you describe what it looks like? It was like a glass box almost, right? And when I say it's white, it was white. Everything was white, But again, the experience wasn't that. And Thomas, the designer, who we'll talk about in a second, because there's a funny story there. But can you describe what food or ambitious dining was like in Chicago in the late 90s?
Yeah, I definitely. Everybody on the other side of the expressway, it was whimsical. There was a place called Vivo, and Jerry Kleiner was a visionary. There was a place on West Broadway called E. Trey Merrily. I'm not sure if you remember.
I do.
Not. He actually went to E. Trey Merrily and took the concept and brought it back to Chicago. And he had a successful Italian restaurant. And then he opened Marche across the street, which was totally whimsical. And it looked like Cirque du Soleil, 1993. And it was big, and it was bistro-esque food, big plates. And it was There was Le Bouchon, which is still open today. Jean-Claude was cooking with butter and just incredible small dining room packed all the time. There was a lot of velvet curtains back then. And then we showed up with no curtains, no exposed ductwork, clean lines, white box. And Paul's food was so on spot. It was just on point. And it was clean and, taking a influence from Chez Panisse and Alice Waters and really making friendships with the farmers and the farmers market and bringing all these fresh ingredients. The plates were large, 13-inch plates, but the food was composed and those dishes are iconic. The pork belly wrapped in bacon, the sturgeon, his charcuterie plate, those dishes were so iconic, clean. There was so much color on them, and nobody was cooking in seasonality back then, and nobody was really taking produce from the farmers market. Louis Schlegel, 25 years he had a little farm back then. We're cooking just incredibly sourced product, and that was something that was obsessive to Paul, and the dining room was obsessive to me. And after he wins the Food and Wine Award, it's game on, right?
But I want people to know that it was not a stuffy experience, and I just don't know, in my opinion, if it gets enough. I won't say credit's not the right word, because it certainly is, but in terms of the pantheon of restaurants that helped shape American dining, I don't think there was anything like that in New York City at the time. I mean, 701 Clinton had not yet opened up. That was 1999. California, not really. I can't. So, like, what happened with Blackbird was a total zag when everyone else is going. You know what I mean? And I remember, I believe it was 1999. Paul won Food and Wine Best New Chefs.
Right.
And that was a banner year. Suzanne Goyen was there. I think Vetri was on there. Rocco was there.
Rocco, Vetri, Susan Goyen.
Murderer's Row.
Yeah, Murderer's Row. Top 10. Like the real top 10.
And for those that don't know, Best New Chef is still a very important award. But then, especially in the 90s, that was a moment in time where if you were recognized, that was it, because there was no other recognition nationally where you could compare yourself to your peers. And I remember, I think Paul sitting on the left, his apron was always tied in the back. Paul was the first person, I think, to not tie it in a traditional fashion. And he just had a sense of style. And we'll talk to you about your style in a second. I just, ever since then, I was like, what is this restaurant? This is a little bit different. And you could see it from the food. It didn't look like Trotter influence, because there was so much Trotter stuff in Chicago and alumni at the time. And it was just something that I'd hear stories about. And later, meeting some alumni, Mikey Sheeran that comes to New York, and you start to hear these things. You start to trade stories. And then when you finally get to eat there, you're like, oh, this is not what I was expecting, because it's more relaxed. It's fun. And like, I can't think of a restaurant that was like, I'm sure maybe there were, but Blackbird was singular in its approach in American dining.
That's kind for you to say. I also think we had a lot of fun because I kept sneaking tables in. Like when we first opened, it was sparse, right? Want a room between the tables, and I go, we got to pick it up a little bit. We got to get more diners in here, man. They really want to dine with us. So I kept sneaking tables in, and what was 8 to 12 inches between each table became 5 to 6 inches, and then we put a table in the window, and then a four top in the window, and then we ended up with like 67 seats, and we're like, yeah, this feels good. And the other interesting part, Dave, was when there was an opportunity for diners to look at each other's plates across from one another or next to each one and ask questions. So that created a dialogue of communal dining. And we were so lucky back then, we had a no cell phone policy. they would just, could you ever consider a restaurant today having a no cell phone policy? And we caught so much shit from people because we were so serious back then, man. We were so serious. And I think I heard this on one of your podcasts. You had a life coach, and that life coach said, man, you just got to let go a little bit, but when you're just starting and it's your own and you got to pay back a loan, and you can't falter. You don't want to make any mistakes. So, but the music was right. The lighting was right. And, we were very playful with the music, Paul's Boutique, some Rolling Stones, some Beatles, and some really classic stuff. And that was a departure because we weren't playing Sinatra, we weren't playing Dean Martin, we were playing stuff that we really loved. And that also made the dining room a little bit more fun, a little bit more relaxed.
Outside of Babbo, I don't know of any other restaurant that played good music, because it literally was elevator music if there was music at all. And, and Paul's really into music. So, again, overall, it's funny. Food ages terribly in photos, and one of the things that makes our industry so wonderful and also so absurdly stupid sometimes is you're trying to talk about an experience that people will never have. So how do you get people to care about something? And I don't know if you can, but I just want to let you know that what you guys created not only laid the foundation for an amazing hospitality group, but it definitely was a zeitgeist moment. And you continue to do that with Avec, which, again, this is the funny story. I didn't know. I had never been to Avec. And then when we did the first restaurant, much like you, we built that because plywall was cheap. But the one similarity, you guys are the only ones that I have found that said it, this notion of decor and ambiance in a restaurant seems to override oftentimes the service of the food sometimes. And I've always found that the people, that's the best decor. That's the best wallpaper.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And you guys just completely nailed that, but you do it in a way that is, no one thinks it's like a concrete cell block, which is the way a lot of my restaurants early on were described, but
no,
yours
I
were
don't
cool.
believe that. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
But
not at all.
I again, when I knew that you guys were not just kindred spirits, but just funny motherfuckers, was after Sambar opened up. And then that's when we went to Chicago and we met for the first time eating at Avec. And I was like, wait a fucking second here. This looks a lot like Sambar.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
I think I got lost in Hurricane Sandy in storage, as many things did. But you sent a picture of a framed photo of Avec from our home to yours, and I just thought, you guys are the best. That was just one of the funniest things, and we had it on our wall at Sambar for a long, long time. Yeah. So,
well, I think you said it right. Kindred spirits, right? And those clothespin. Listen, Donald Judd created that design. Okay, like 50, 60, 70 years ago. So nobody owns that design, man. It's subtle influences that we take from one another. And man, share with me again, because I was trying to Google it. Wasn't there a beautiful light box photograph of a tennis player?
Yes, it was John McEnroe. So right when you walked in, the only thing I knew about Sambar, I didn't even know because it was going to be Asian burritos to start, is literally because I actually am not really good at the design. I don't have the patience for it. I only have like one feature in a restaurant that I'll give a shit about, and this was it. I wanted an indentation in the wall, so it was like specifically designed for this giant picture. No, it was a billboard on the side of a bus stop from 1984 that my friend Lucas Peter Leno stole, ripped off, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I got that big 6 foot by like 5 foot thing framed, and I was like, I don't know, but I have to put that right in when you walk into the restaurant. And that's the only thing. That was the patron saint of Momofuku. He was, it still is. And so you walk in, you're like, where am I? This is ridiculous. Yeah. What is this place?
That was such a badass. photograph. And it was light box, so it illuminated, which made it even cooler. And I was like, yeah, right in the middle of the dining room. I love that.
To my knowledge, I think again, no surprise, Wiley Dufresne, sort of at the cutting edge of things, he had his little box 71 Clinton,
Yeah.
and a Vec was something that you would think should have been invented or opened in many cities by then, but it hadn't. And what was a Vec? What was the impetus catalyst for, hey, let's open this spot?
Yeah. There was a restaurant next to the west of us, and they signed a lease for their second restaurant across the alley from us, which is where Vec is now. And they couldn't pull the trigger. So Ricky and I walked next door one night and had a drink and said, "Listen, we're gonna meet with the landlord and take that space." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Thanks for coming over. I appreciate you. Do it in face to face." And we took that space. And what was it? Blackbird was we were lucky to be as busy, and yet we only had 67 seats. We needed a holding tank. We needed somewhere where people can have a drink and wait for their table, and we could take on more walk-ins. And reservations back then were 6 to 8 weeks out, and still after 5 years. So we had this opportunity and said, let's do a wine bar, and people will come and have a great glass of wine. And our business partner Edward was, he loves this phrase, the sun-drenched regions of the Mediterranean. And it kind of went really well with Paul and Karen's food. And I mean, the intimacy of that restaurant was, we needed people to hold somewhere so we could sit more people at Blackbird. And lo and behold, the food was just out of the box. It wasn't a wine bar.
Can you describe that? Because I never think of a Vec as a wine bar, especially when I went there.
Yeah.
I think the menu and the offerings were so original, because at that time you might see that menu sort of, a lot of places in America might have that kind of inspired menu. But for those that don't know, what was on the menu, because it was hard to describe, because these are all foods that you were like, why haven't I had this before?
Yeah. I'm listen. A couple of those dishes, the date dish, the medjool dates stuffed with chorizo, that was Paul's father-in-law. He used to bring it. To family gatherings like Christmas or Easter, and that was his date recipe with some minor tweaks. I remember Paul going to New York and having a couple of drinks with Michael Schlau. They ended up on 33rd and Lexington. There's this old school pizzeria there. The deluxe focaccia instead of taleggio and ricotta was prosciutto and ricotta and prosciutto. So that was the that famous deluxe focaccia, which is still on our menu. The pork shoulder, everyone that takes a bite of the pork shoulder, whether they're from Croatia or that's a part of someone's home where they're cooked, where they cook from, where they're from. And so that dish went over with everyone because it brought people home. The brandade, just with cod, and it's still on the menu. The dish that I miss most, Dave, is the pizza la dare. I thought that was Karen's version of a pizza, and I love that dish. And those are all iconic dishes that are still on that menu, and people still, they go crazy. The only tweak that we made for the focaccia is we added honey now, so you can drizzle honey on the top of it.
But they're not European facsimiles, and that's what made it. You're like, where am I eating? You're like, oh, I'm eating in Chicago. I don't know what it is, but it tastes delicious and it seems familiar, but I don't know exactly. And that's what was the secret sauce of a Vec. And then you could be eating and you look to the table, at the bar, you could just see what everyone's ordering. Like, oh, I want that. And there was this vibe.
Yeah.
Gotta say, it's the most New York City restaurant in Chicago.
Thank you. Well, I think the communal tables give us elevates the service a little bit because um, we do allow our staff to really hone in on the guest experience, and also the guests are sitting right next to one another, and still after all these years, even after COVID, um, it still works for that restaurant because it's this tiny little box, tiny little wooden box that people really are still excited to sit next to one another. And I just want to hold in on one important factor with everything coming up, AI and all of this all of this technology. Dave, human connection right now is more important than anything that we can do. And if we can create communal dining and shared plates, and you can hang out with someone you don't even know and sit comfortably with, man, that's our business in the next 5 years. I truly believe that human connection is something that we really hold on to right now. If we don't savor that and we don't really land on that, that's what I'm pre-shifting right now. Human connection, especially at a staff level. So when order taking is especially now with these handhelds, and listen, Europe's had handhelds for 35 years. It's nothing new to them, but still they know they can operate them with a little bit more finesse. And you know human connection is going to be so important. I really believe in it, and especially that's why that restaurant still does well. And I think that's why people want to go there, because they want to hang out intimately in a setting where they feel comfortable and not worry about anything else. They just leave everything outside.
Did you have any insights to how the communal dining at a VEC might be interpreted by guests? Because again, at the time, how should I say? If you told people in the late 90s, early aughts, hey, go sit down with a bunch of random people,
Yeah.
maybe at a Chinese restaurant, but that again seems commonplace today. But how did that go over when you first introduced it?
I think it was already introduced at Blackbird, just based on the tables being 5 inches apart. I thought we could take a chance. Jeffrey Chalderall had that restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but he had one communal table in there, and I was like,
it was a table. It was an Asia to Cuba, wasn't it?
Asia to Cuba. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you walked up there was this one long communal table with Philippe Stark chairs, and I'm like, man, I love that. I would love to hang out there, and just I'm in New York. This is what yeah. So when we talked about it with Thomas. When Thomas put a schematic plan together, he had 2 tops all against that wall, and they stuck out too far. I said, well, we need a banquette, and we need it to be flat against the wall. We can't have any other. We're losing inches. So we developed this idea. Let's make 6 to 8 tops, and all in a row. And he drew it, and it was like, yeah, that feels good. Let's go for it. And we went for it, and the rest is history. It's still a mainstay for a restaurant. And we went, and I'll also mention that we stole a little influence from our favorite place on Gansevoort. Before Gansevoort was anything, we loved this place that was open until 4 a.m, and you could get blood sausage there. And the owner was a graphic designer. He had these beautiful maps of Europe on the wall. I can't remember why. I love this.
It wasn't Florent, was it?
Florent, yes, Florent. And if you remember, the counter walked into the kitchen, and the kitchen, there was all of this back and forth and coming out. All the food came out and was like, yeah, that's our bar. We're going to incorporate the dining room right into the kitchen and the counter, and the 3-person line with a wood burning oven. 80% of the plates come out of the wood burning oven, and it was like, boom.
But again,
Eureka,
wood burning oven. These are again, I mean, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but these seem to be commonplace things you might see in a restaurant. But I always think when we had the great Pulitzer Prize winning art critic Jerry Saltz on, I was like, why is Andy Warhol important? And he's like, ultimately, because he used pink. I was like, what? And these are now things that you just take for granted, but the communal table experience did not exist in a lot of restaurants. It wasn't invented by you guys, but to be able to have that sort of as the fulcrum point for the restaurant, that's just like a ballsy thing to try to do. And in a tiny restaurant, a lot of people might say wood burning oven, that's too small. You can't really do it. But it is what it is. And that's why I'm like, Avec is such a seminal restaurant for like modern American dining. It just is.
Yeah, kudos to Paul on that one. He loves live fire. In fact, we got away for a long time cooking with wood, and we didn't have a separate hood at Blackbird. He loves the smokiness of it. He loves live fire and live fuel, and that was a no-brainer. And Dough Pro, we tried every angle we possibly can to do type of commercial, or can you give us a little break on the price? And we got Paul Kahn, and I just remember the day it got delivered in this little tiny spot, and they forklifted in, and I'm like, fuck, are they gonna get this thing in here? It's so giant. But live fire was really important to Paul and Karen, and cooking in those cast iron pots and those cocottes, and it was seamless for us. It was just a really good idea for Paul to have that type of cooking going on. Plus, it also gave us the space just to have 3 people up there cooking. So one over a stove, and Garmager was in front, and then everything was prepped and ready just to be cooked in the Dough Pro. So that was an exciting thing for us, and
but
still
everything, even the service, knowledgeable but informal, and the wines, like that was the first time I saw chocolate port in America. I never even saw that at like Casamono or any other Spanish restaurants or tapas bars. I was like, wait, what is that?
That's Edward. Yeah, that's Edward. That's our business partner, Edward, taking another chance. And I think you know this better than anyone, that we have to take risk, and we have to stand behind those risks. And sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't work. For the most part, the communal tables worked, the long counter worked, the open kitchen worked, the live fire worked, and the wine program and the sun-drenched regions of the Mediterranean went really well with the regional food that Paul and Karen were cooking. And it was a magical moment, and I think we all need those magical moments to keep us going.
But you guys kept on producing hit after hit. Big Star, right? Publican, which is one of the best spots, my favorite spots, because it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, you can order the whole menu, and like there's you can't walk into Publican like, I don't get it.
Right.
It's great.
I have it has, all of these places have great street cred, right? And they're Publican's 18 years old. Avec is 22 years old. Unfortunately, Blackbird closed in 2020, and I really believe that what I'm looking at right now is a new regime of Publican, and Rob Levitt, who came across the street from Publican Quality Meats. Watching him work, I work there. I run food a couple days a week at PQM, just to keep, just to be on. I just want to be working and helping out. And what he does, breaking down animals there, and then using all of that product at Publican and at PQM, it is a beautiful symphony. It really is, for both of those restaurants. I'm really proud of the work that goes into Publican and Publican Quality Meats and all of the restaurants, and to keep that level of passion going, especially at PQM. breaking down animals and all the deliciousness that comes out of that restaurant. I'm really proud of that. I'm sure Paul
Uh,
is very proud of it.
and you guys have created just a very consistent graduating class of alumni and also people that have been staying in your organization year after year. Again, that's just a testament to what you guys have created. But the one thing, I wanted to talk about it because we don't necessarily talk about it too much, is closing restaurants down, right? You
Yeah.
closed Big Star. Excuse me. You closed Blackbird, and we closed a few down during the pandemic. What can you explain that process and like what was going through your head and the reasons why?
Do you want me to cry?
Yeah, let's cry.
Um, Probably the hardest decision in my entire life, and it was really hard for Paul and I because we were on the opposite side of the table of closing the restaurant or keeping it open. Um, if a day or a week doesn't go by where someone doesn't come to me and said, "Man, you got to reopen that restaurant," and I go, or the other line is, "Man, I really miss." I'll go to a table, and someone comes and he goes, "I have 10 out of 12 anniversaries at Blackbird. Man, I really miss that restaurant." I go, "How do you think I feel?" Um, yeah, I miss that restaurant every day, and I miss what we created there, and I miss every moment of that restaurant. That's where I got married, and I mean, we always talk about celebrating anniversaries and first birthdays and these monumental um, celebrations that we have, and for me, that restaurant was a celebration of life. It gave me an opportunity to do something really special, something that I really wanted to do. And it gave Paul an outlet to create and influence other cooks and other chefs. And, the one thing that I'll mention about Paul is I have so much respect for him based on, I mean, 20, 2027 will be together for 30 years. And the one thing that I really want to compliment him is how he nurtured every line cook that came in there and how he allowed them an outlet or a part of the canvas, not the whole canvas, but a part of the canvas to elevate their own cooking style and be involved in in the creation of a menu item. And one thing that restaurant did was collaborate. And I love that. I love collaborations, and his collaborations for cooks is something really special, especially in that restaurant, based on um, changing menu biweekly, which I think is insane. You you talked a little bit about the bear that Carmi's changing the menu daily. I know that. I don't know why Paul picked Friday to change 4 or 5 menu items, and then those 4 or 5 menu items would come directly right at the time they were finished. They would come right at the time of pre-shift, and pre-shift would stop, and then he would unveil 4 or 5 new dishes, and I'm like, "Don't do it, not tonight." And it's like, and he when he gets upset or a little nervous, he has these two little horns that he calls horns, and I could tell that he's totally stressed out, Dave, like completely. Like, is this going to go over? Am I going to pull it off? And especially in spring, summer, and the fall, especially the fall, bi-weekly menu changes to 4 or 5 items, or 2 items, or 3, but sometimes 4, is completely insane.
Mm-hmm.
And we did it though, and it took us a couple days to make sure that all the staff members knew what the ingredients were, and but the important part is he allowed his cooks to collaborate with him or come to the meeting with a dish and plate that dish. And he would make a tweak or two. And he doesn't like, what's he call it? It's a little gloppy. Um, and he would tweak it and it'd be on the menu. And I thought that was such an incentive for a line cook to be at Blackbird and also hone in on his craft. So I just wanted to mention that.
Hey, listen, man. I'm grateful that you're even talking about it. I know that it is a mixture of pain and beauty. I don't know exactly how you feel, but I have those somewhat similar feelings, right? And I want to talk about it because it's so difficult to explain to people, and there's never a clean answer as to why. And more often than not, you just get why, and I miss it. And it's just this constant echo chamber of like, fuck, and I don't know. I feel one of the things that we got to do is at some point, every restaurant will close, and it still lives on in other ways, clearly through all your other restaurants and your alumni. But, it's just something that I don't know how to articulate. I just know that if we don't talk about it, maybe, it's hard enough as it is. And sometimes people are just like, I don't love it anymore. I don't want to do it. There's 1,000 fucking reasons why you might close a restaurant down. And it's never easy and it's still painful. It's one of the reasons why I don't think I can ever move back to New York City on a permanent basis. I can't walk through under 14th Street and walk into the East Village. I just can't. And it's so painful, right? And it's also mixed with beautiful memories, but that's just where I'm at right now,
I believe that the pain of closing a restaurant, especially Blackbird, which is one of the most important restaurants in the group, and there's this drive that I do on my way to a VEC. I cut through an alley and then I pull up, and I did that for years and years and years and years. And sometimes I would have this deja vu moment that, oh, I'm going to go work service at Blackbird, and then I look and it's not there anymore, and then I walk into a VEC and I kind of like leave that memory at the door, and then I dig in. Listen, maybe you're sparking something that Paul and I should have a conversation about closing that restaurant, because I don't know if I know where he's at, I know where I'm at, but maybe having a conversation about why, and it might be important to the relationship. It might be important to move on. Man, I didn't know that. I thought that Blackbird at 20 would go to 30, to 25, and then 30. And we own the building. And I remember the conversation I called Donnie Madia and just to get some advice. And I also called Caroline Stein, and I also called Gabrielle Hamilton in that time frame. And I remember what Danny told me, which gave me great relevance to why we should keep it. And he said, well, why would you eliminate the optionality? You own the building. You don't have to reopen it right away. He goes, but that restaurant's so important to Chicago, and it's obviously very important to you and Paul. Why would you want to close it? And I shared that with Paul, and I think Paul already had his mind made up. And I know one thing, Dave, Paul doesn't like fussy food. And what he eats right now is where his mind is. And maybe it was just time for him not to be fussy anymore and not worry about food cost and labor cost, which is a constant discussion now more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in his own mind, he was complete with the idea of not being fussy anymore, not being worried about food costs or labor costs, because um, I thought Ryan Pfeiffer's food was so delicious and so beautiful. I mean, I still have photographs of the food, um, and he was so on it. Um, and don't forget what Danny Meyer also had said during the pandemic, that he doesn't know how people can work 3 inches apart from one another. So I think that the pandemic played an important role about that little small galley kitchen that we had, the dining room, um, the prefix menu that we had, the degustation menu. Um, those are all elements of why. But we get through that, right? And we push through that, and we keep pushing. And yeah, I'll close with this. In season 2, they were looking for. In season 2, the Bear was looking for a restaurant that was closed, and they wanted to use it as a part of the storyline. And the Blackbird letters were still at the top. And I got a call from the producer, and I couldn't even talk on the phone. And I was like, yeah, no, no, can't do it. Because then that scene would be in that, and it would be in there forever. So I passed on that, and now we also sold the building to our neighbor who's in energy, and it'll never be another restaurant again. So that's the end of that one.
I know that was not the funnest thing to talk about, and again, I'm grateful that you're even talking about this. And I think one of the reasons that makes your partnership with all your partners, but particularly Paul, so fruitful, is that you guys can talk about things and continue to talk about things. But having thought about it, from my perspective, and I didn't talk to Paul, but we have so many people. It's a small world, and that time, 2020, that was just one of the most blackest, darkest years for anybody, particularly in the restaurant industry. But I was like, once you put all the COVID shit aside, I was like, you just said it. Paul wants simple, but I think someone that's been a fan of Paul and everything he does and just his general demeanor he's just authentic, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of imposing what I think too about some of the restaurants we've closed, is like, I'm just not that person anymore.
It's a great point, man.
You can't. And if you're authentic, you know what I mean? It's like, he's one of the most realist people I know, and what you see is what you're going to get. And he can't and I understand that, like, nobody wants to make the food that, even if it's different with different perspectives from younger chefs, your DNA is entwined in all of that. And like, I mean, part of the closing of a restaurant too, I think, is, in my opinion, and just sort of where I'm at too in food, I think it's okay to publicly say, I don't love it like I used to love it. And that doesn't mean I hate it. But if you love something so intensely, how are you ever going to measure up against that later on? And I think clearly, just by what you're talking about, Paul's got to have that same burning, passion for Blackbird. And I just think, which is why I want to talk about it to begin with. It just was such a unique, special restaurant. Like, people just don't want to make, like, for example, you don't want to, I don't want to make assumption, like, you don't want to eat a 5-hour degustation menu anymore.
No.
Nobody really does.
No.
And I think it's okay. It's like, we evolve, we move on. We don't play the same music like we used to. I always think about it like Dylan. It's like, it takes me time to appreciate modern Dylan. I don't love it as much, but it would be stupid to say, like, why don't you just make it like you used to? Well, you can't.
Yeah. Your analogy is, from a chef's perspective, is right on. When you say those certain things about Paul, and I can understand a little bit more. So I really want to say thank you for your side. You know, we have an incredible, what we should be really thankful about, Dave, is I opened up with, in the next 2 years, being together for 30 years. I mean, that in itself that's an incredible feat.
It is unprecedented. Listen, I'm sure someone's going to be like, no, these people have been together. Yeah, I'm sure. But in my universe, the people that I know, you guys are one of one, right? Like, you name it. Any great restaurateur, any great chef, whether it's been made public or not, they usually get divorced at a much higher rate than actual marriage and divorce. And you guys have gone to the ups and downs, and you guys have remained loyal and true to each other. And that is the hardest fucking thing.
Yeah. We've had some battles, no doubt. And I also know that when you're living in that space of creativity and profit and food cost and labor cost and doing the right thing by your staff, your employees, and being honorable, and all of those elements of making a great restaurant and continuing the lineage of that restaurant. You never want to disappoint anyone. And I think you said it so gracefully recently on another podcast. We never celebrate. We don't really celebrate. We're always about, what did Will Gadara say? Somebody told him that we're more obsessed about the one thing that goes wrong in a restaurant in one night than the 95 to 100 things that go right. And that's fucked up. Because when you illuminate that one thing and you make it about that one thing, you can't celebrate all the wins that you did that night, how many people we made happy, how many great drinks came out, how many great dishes came out. And
But Donnie, that makes sense because we're judged. We're like sort of like the CIA. You only hear about the things that go bad for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, we're judged by our mistakes, at least by the public, and that's just sort of the nature of the beast. I wish it was different. You know,
Penny Pollack, I think she served for Chicago Magazine. She served over 35 years as a writer, and I had a conversation with her, I don't know, a couple years ago, and I asked her, I go, man, you just wrote about this new restaurant. Like, it's only been open like 3 weeks. She goes, Donnie, I have to. I go, why? She goes, because every blogger and every person in the entire world now thinks they're a food writer. And to add to that story, Jason Hamill from Lula, he spoke at the Chicago Welcome Conference back in 2023, and he spoke so eloquently about how he and everyone in our industry gets judged on a daily basis. And how does that make you feel when you go to bed or when you get up and you see that review?
I was at a restaurant I won't name, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had in a restaurant. And it was the reason why it was so hard for me is because it was just a lack of everyone there. And we were eating at like a 3 to 4 o'clock when it's in between shifts. Ultimately, no one cared, right? And I was so angry, mainly because I was like, oh man, and I know you've had this too. There are times where in your restaurants, I was like, my worst fear is like this experience that I'm having. I guarantee you somebody's eating at our restaurants right now and feeling the same thing, potentially. And that's, I wish I didn't think like that, but it's like, you know, the difference now is maybe instead of me judging and maybe going back to this critic, maybe they just received news that one of their colleagues got injured or maybe something. And I was like, man, I just got to chill the fuck out. As angry as I am, I was like, you don't really know anything. And especially if I'm in this fucking business, then I should have some grace and some humanity to sort of just be like, okay, it is what it is. And we make fucking mistakes. And I myself wanted to go, I'm going to go on. Yeah. You know what I mean? My reaction was just as bad as everyone else out there.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife schooled me when my son was, I don't know, he was just before it was 2:00. We were eating in a restaurant. We were eating in a restaurant in New York, and it was in that in between hour. And they stuck us in a corner with the only diners there, and we just got ignored. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I brought myself and I brought my wife down, and my son's only like, he's not even 2 yet. She leaned in and she goes, "If this is how all of our restaurant experiences are going to be from now on, I don't want to go with you anymore." And now when I go out to a dinner, I don't say anything. The roof can fall in, the food could be horrible, and I don't judge anybody. I can't. I won't. It doesn't make her feel good. It doesn't, and it really doesn't make the dining experience good at all.
Absolutely.
So I'm not judging anyone. I just there. Let's have a good dinner, and that's it, man.
Amen to that. I mean, listen, there's so many things I want to ask you, and we could have you on forever because there's a lot of juicy, good things to talk about. But I wanted to get you out on two things. One is, listen, when they talk about Donnie in the business, what besides him running and being partners with, one of the best restaurant groups in the country, inevitably, almost always, someone's like, well, he dresses really well. How the fuck did this happen? Number one. And two, you are genuinely the only person I could say officially on a global level, front of the house or back of the house, that like dresses really fucking well. And this is a business where all you have to do is go to the Beard Awards and see just how hard it is to dress well when you're supposed to even get a black tie. Like, chefs just can't dress. We are, especially chefs, like, we just can't do it. Like, how the fuck? And you actually have your own sense of style. And what happened? How did this happen? It's like the great enigma.
I thought we were going to talk about hot dogs. I don't know. There's a word in Italian, sprezzatura. It means contempt, contemptuous. And that's what Italian fashion is all about. And, there's always this separation between, London cut and Italian cut. And listen, I think style is really important. It's like the restaurant design itself. It's important. It's important to look good. It's important to feel good about who you are. And I don't want to try hard with my fashion. In fact, I probably get out fashioned by a lot of people. And yet, when you're trying to set a certain tone for a dining room, especially Blackbird, white tablecloth, fine dining, I like to dress the part, but I don't dress the part because I want to play a part. I dress the part because I feel that it's important for the experience. And well, do I have good style?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You have great style.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. I'm telling you the truth, Donnie. Like, you might have the best sense of style. No, I'm not. I'm serious. It's a rare thing in our business, and I just want people to know, like,
thanks, man.
For real. You. And yes, we could talk about hot dogs and all that other stuff, but you know what? I feel like we've badgered you enough. But one thing before we get you out of here, because I might try to cook it later.
Go.
Chicago or tavern pizza? Deep dish or tavern?
Oh, please, tavern pizza. Come on.
Why so incredulous? Why tavern all the way?
Well, listen, I have friends in pizzerias in both arenas. I love tavern-style, but I love Neapolitan. But I I just ate at Mozza in LA, and I think that Nancy's crust is one of the best crust. Uh, listen, I love hot dogs and I love pizza. My son loves pizza. My son could eat pizza almost every day. My wife is an incredible cook. She's unbelievable. And I think that I believe truly tavern style holds up a little differently because it's cut in squares. Neapolitan, I've had this conversation with Chris Bianco so many times. Wet Neapolitan versus not wet Neapolitan. I'm the not wet Neapolitan. Um, Deep dish. My son said to me, Bronson said, "Hey, Dad, let's go to Giordano's." I go, "No, we're not going to go to Giordano's." And he goes, "No, no, really, I want to go to Giordano's." I go, "We can't go to Giordano's. Can't. The pizza's too heavy. You can't lift it." I go, "Come on, we're not going there." And no disrespect to Giordano's, they have a great lineage. They're, well, I just can't.
But I
Can't
feel
do it.
like everyone I know in Chicago would prefer tavern over deep dish any day of the week. So is it just
Yeah.
all the tourists that think that Chicago is a deep dish pizza town? Because I haven't met anybody from Chicago that's like passionately defending deep dish pizza. So what do you want to talk about the bear? Let's knock it out real quick.
We talked about Chicago a little bit and the importance of this culinary destination, and with the Beard Awards, the restaurant show every year in May, and then we back right up into the James Beard Awards. I think we have 2 more years left here, and then the importance of it being in Chicago and how important it is, and then just the cherry on the for Chicago itself. What Chris Storer has created with all of those actors and all of the producers and all of his team. This is not a commercial. Just being on set more than a few times, and how it elevates Chicago dining in itself, not just fine dining, but pizza, hot dogs. It's all talked about. Beef sandwiches, Mr. Beef. That elevates our city even more. And it is, I'm sure you've heard this phrase before. It's a love letter to Chicago, what he's created. And I'm just happy to be involved in any way I can. I think it's really important to the city.
One of the highlights for me in the bear is when they do the refurb and you're sitting down in it. And I was like, okay, now it's official. Now the show is official. Storer did it right.
He did. He did. He did. And I know that some scenes you've talked about drive you insane. I know they drive me insane too. I love that you go back and you talk about what you would do and how you would do it. And man, I get it. I love your commentary. I really do. I think it adds a lot of value, especially from a passionate and obsessive point.
Right.
And
it's just hard to talk about because all my friends make the fucking show. So it's like, I just want it to be a love letter itself, and maybe give a perspective that the average listener or people that do all these podcast recaps, they just may not have the angles that we can talk about. So
yeah, I'll close with, it just did so much for Chicago, especially the B-roll. Taking you through the city, the 77 neighborhoods that we're blessed with, and how important those neighborhoods are, and they don't get exposed. And I think Store and everyone has done a really good job in elevating other neighborhoods, not just downtown, not just Fulton Market, West Side, South Side, and that's really important that we look at the city as a whole and examine examine where you can eat, and it just doesn't have to be downtown or Fulton Market. It can be in these other beautiful neighborhoods like Little Village or Pilsen, West Side, and those are things that I just wanted to close with, because I think that we have 77 neighborhoods in the city, and they should all be explored for all type of cuisines.
One thing before we do finally get you out of here, then.
Go.
Why does Chicago embrace the new more than any other city in America? It really does. What is it about Chicago? I mean, Stupak says it's because people can cook at home all the time. In New York, they can't. But I think that's the most valid reason. But what is it about the sort of the cultural zeitgeist in Chicago where it does genuinely embrace things that are maybe left of center?
Mm-hmm. I think it's because all those neighborhoods and all those people are so hardworking. And the important part is that it really gets elevated by people that care. That someone is doing something in Pilsen, you should go see this. You should really dine at this restaurant. And it's talked about a lot. It's not left behind. It's always talked about. And the interesting part is that chefs are opening restaurants here in this city, like Chef Cliff Rome, who championed Brownsville before Brownsville turned, or it was cool, and he's been doing it for years, but never got the recognition. And that's something that's really important to the city, that there's these neighborhoods that everybody should eat at. So I hope that answers your question.
So for those that haven't, book a ticket to Chicago, visit all Donnie's restaurants. But listen, there's so much good eating, man. So it is. I say this with all sincerity, the most important restaurant city in America. Not because of just the bear, but for me, it does embrace things that are new, and we need new. We need new voices all the time, and Chicago's got it in spades.
Yeah, it does, and it's not stopping. It's not stopping, which is so cool. Quick little close with Anthony. When we took him there, we filmed in this little hot dog stand, and the producer came in. She said, "Can we get a little background in the kitchen?" And the owner threw everybody out. Get out! you know what happened the last time you guys were here? And it wasn't them; it was another film crew. One of your cameramen, they got burned by the fryer. Get out! And I'm like, "You're throwing Anthony Bourdain out. We brought him here. Get out!" And I was like, "Holy cow!"
He probably loved it. He was like, "Yes."
He did love it, man. Yeah. Anyway, I know he was a good friend of yours, and sorry about that.
No, man, it's something I think about a lot, but that's another day to talk about that. But
yeah, right on.
Listen, I love you very much. I'm glad we finished talking about that a little bit, and it's just always a pleasure, my man. All right, guys. Visit Chicago. A lot of good stuff going on. David, our trusted producer, son of Chicago himself. And I think we got an Ask Dave that's related to a hot dog, which we're going to get. I mean, we're filming this before I do this hot dog segment, so let's just see how this goes.
Well, so we've got an Ask Dave from Jeff from Iowa, who's a major domo level 4, but says his wife is a 6, and she makes.
Thank you for not saying 7.
She makes ham-made dumplings. Jeff's favorite thing to do is fire up his Texas-built barbecue pit, and his best dish is back ribs. He says, quote, "I know Dave thinks it's stupid. I have an offset pit, but I love it."
Listen, it's not stupid. I mean, let me rephrase that. It is the proper thing if you're going to do some serious barbecue smoking, because the green egg has its limitations. Smoking is one of them. That's all I want to say.
And his favorite meal was the 3 times Jeff was lucky enough to eat at Le Bernardin, as well as some of your restaurants like Co and Sam. And his question is really important for this Chicago hot dog conversation. Should you grill hot dogs, and should you ever grill bacon? Jeff says he thinks doing either is an atrocity, which is interesting.
Grilling bacon, I would say, is probably simply a no because of the fat that drips. And you'll start a grease fire immediately. Not immediately, but probably not recommended. Grilling hot dogs, I think, are fine. Grilled hot dogs I like because you can get charred, but not all hot dogs are the same, especially with the commercially bought ones. I won't say the names of the brands, but I do find that the hot dogs that are juicier are better. In terms of bacon, I think a bacon wrapped dog is fucking delicious. I actually have one, not to toot my own horn, in my own name at PDT, at Criff Dogs. Also, LA Dog. We did something for Amazon, or if you go to one of the, crypto.com or any of the music venues here, or any kind of show, you're going to see people setting up a goddamn beautiful station built out of it's like a tool box, and they, create these mobile heating elements with just a sterno can underneath and with a hotel sheet tray. If what I'm trying to describe to you doesn't make any fucking sense, then you need to visit LA, because it's, as far as I know, I've only seen it in LA, and they'll make these LA dogs that are wrapped in bacon, and they're served with, served with sometimes a roasted jalapeno. It's got onions. It's got all the condiments on it. It's delicious. So yeah, I think bacon on a hot dog is delicious, but I would not grill bacon. I don't think bacon should be served in Seattle with cream cheese. We've talked about the Seattle dog. That, to me, I don't understand. And I have yet to truly center myself in all things that are Chicago hot dog. Stay tuned, because I hatched this crazy idea with Dave last week, as we're going to do a MacGyvering moment here, where I'm going to make a tavern-style pizza. To be honest, I've never even had a tavern-style pizza, so I don't even know what the fuck it is. I have a theory, a working theory about how this tavern pizza is going to be made. You're just going to have to stay tuned to watch it. I've now decided I'm maybe using vodka and matzo bread. So let's see what happens. We're going to do something that has never been done in the history of the world. Sounds like a lot. I don't know if that's true. But when I eat a thin crust pizza, it's like a cracker to me. You know what I love to eat and munch on? My kids do too. They have to be salted. What is this, David?
Thin salted matzo.
Matzo, underrated as a kid snack food. Before I left for my family vacation, told David this idea that we were going to make matzo crust tavern-style pizza. And when I assure you I have not done this before, I haven't. Because I've asked for vodka. I'm going to maybe add just a little bit of water into this so it's not totally vodka. The reason I'm adding vodka is I need to crumble this to some degree. This very dry cracker. Add enough moisture so I can find it malleable. Cook it in here in a pan, crisp it up again, and then set my crust like it's a boboli crust, and then top it with everything. Pizza tomato sauce. So I'm spraying this right now. Smells like vodka, because it is.
Do you think the spritz bottle is something everyone should have in their home?
No. But what I want to do, the reason I'm using this, which is, I would say, 3/4 vodka, cheap vodka, and a little bit of water, is I want to use the least amount of liquid possible to sort of soften this up. Fat Duck just celebrated its 30th anniversary, Heston Blumenthal, significant chef. Talk about him at a later date. But him and his team of Chris and Kyle and the whole R&D team, they developed a way to make fish and chips that was not the recipe that sort of took the world over, but there's a technique that he invented that made the most insanely delicious crust or batter. And the whole idea for frying something, such as English fish and chips, is what you want is clearly you want to make the batter, but you can't do that without some kind of liquid. The problem with the batter and getting it crispy is that it's a battle between how fast you can cook the sugars and the flour and sort of evaporate all the water. You want to evaporate it as quickly as possible, and the more quickly you do that, the crunchier and crispier it gets. So, and if you cook it off, all the alcohol is going to burn off, and vodka almost tastes like nothing after the fact, so it leaves no trace. So in my theory, I was going to just spritz it with water, which I think would work as we sort of put it in here. So this vodka solution should sort of, I think in theory, cook off all the alcohol as quickly as possible and allow me to make this crust. But I feel like maybe even a spritz bottle is not enough. First matzo ball I ever had was age 13, and it was, I think to this day, the only bar mitzvah I've ever been to, but that wasn't the day that I ate it. It was just one of my good friends named Ethan. And I had a matzo ball at his house, and I was like, what is this thing? And ever since then, my dad, who worked in New York City when he immigrated here in 1963, he worked at a Jewish delicatessen, a little known fact. And he loved matzo ball soup. This doesn't work. No surprise. No surprise, no surprise, doesn't work. So I'm gonna try something else. The problem I have is that my initial idea of spritzing it doesn't work. And maybe it would work if I soaked the matzah overnight, but we don't have that fucking time. I mean, that looks crazy.
Vodka and matzo.
I think we need to add more vodka. Yeah, let's get after it. Let's get after it. Holy shit.
I feel like the culinary Igor in Dr. Frankenstein's delicious lab.
This looks really bad. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. You know what? I'm happy. If you're listening to this, maybe you should listen to this and not watch. What the fuck is happening? Basically, I made a matzo smoothie with vodka. That I know for sure has never been made. And I put it into a heated pan with olive oil. And I'm trying to smother it out so there's no gaps. It looks like oatmeal. Mm-hmm. Looks like vomit. Not gonna lie. So if you're wondering, that sounds terrible, you wouldn't be wrong. You would not be wrong. Probably the smarter idea was to use lavash to make this, which I don't think we have any.
No.
Or even a tortilla, but I feel like that's been done many times.
Yeah, this felt like a real, you were excited to challenge yourself and see if it even worked.
Yeah, I really was. And now, much like the snickerdoodle, it's a fucking bad idea.
Dave cut a cartouche, put a heavy pot on top, and is now pushing that crust down.
I'm gonna give this a 10 more seconds. We're gonna flip it over. Pray to God this works. So I put about 5 whole sheets of, what is it, sheet? How do you call
Matzo,
it?
yeah. I
Matzo?
think
5 matzo crackers, squares.
Piece of matzo.
Four right angles each. And I put a shit ton of vodka. And it didn't work, so I put it in a blender and I poured it out. And right now, I'm trying to get all the moisture out. which I'm not going to get all the moisture out because I have a lid on. So that's why I'm trying to look at this carefully before it burns. I'm trying to figure this out. Sorry. I flipped it. It needs a little bit more body.
Yeah.
I'm gonna add way more vodka than before to get a thinner batter. So I haven't quite figured out how to flip this now. And I don't have the confidence right now, because so much of cooking is being in a slow state of confidence, is to do a flip that way. Okay, it's not burning on the bottom. I think we're gonna do this. I think we're gonna do this. David, what are you thinking?
I think it looks in pretty good shape, especially from where we began. It looks like the exact, like that is the...
All right. Chris Bianco's gonna be mortified that this is happening. This beautiful sauce.
So Tavern has a very thin layer of sauce.
Super thin?
Yeah, very thin. It's a much lighter, it's like a bar snack versus the deep dish, which is the heaviest possible bite.
Does it go all the way to the edge, the cheese too?
Yeah.
I've also never had a tavern style. So maybe I should make a real one first before fucking doing this. Does Tavern have toppings or no toppings?
Tavern occasionally has onion or green pepper or something, sausage.
So should I just go cheese or sausage? Or both?
Maybe some sausage. Honor our Chicago meat packers.
Some andouille, which is spreadable sausage.
Slicing up some sport pepper to go on our sausage, onion, cheese, tavern-style matzo pizza.
All right, we're going in the oven. All right, I had it at 450. I now just cranked it to 500, and it's on a full convection air fry setting on this LG oven. Looks like a tavern-style pizza, but a tavern-style pizza is super crunchy, right?
It's pretty crispy, but
If I was served that, there's no way you know it was matzo. I mean, you cannot taste at all the vodka. Honestly, it's pretty good. Come on, get in here.
yeah, you got it. If you know Barnaby's, you know you got to go for the corners. Yeah. You would not at all know that that's matzo.
No. I mean, it's not something you would order, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But as a one-off, as a MacGyvering challenge.
The bomb was defused.
Oh. All right. Thank you, guys. Just trying to have some fun here. Tie it to hot dogs, City of Chicago, One of Hospitality, Donnie Madia, Paul Kahan, Sport Peppers. We got surrounded by some producers that are all from Chicago. And anyway, that's it. All right, give us 5 stars. How would you rate this podcast? Join us on Dinner Time Live. That's holy shit happening. And yeah, talk to you soon.